Have you ever thought that our planet might actually run out of sand? It sounds impossible, right? After all, nature has generously covered almost every continent with vast, dry, sandy areas. Just look at the Sahara Desert, stretching over 3.5 million square miles. It covers 8% of the Earth's land. You wouldn't expect a shortage if the sand there was just a thin layer, but the dunes of the Sahara can reach heights of 590 feet, almost the height of two Big Bens stacked on top of each other. In other words, this one massive desert alone has enough sand to supply several countries. But despite this abundance, scientists are warning us about a sand shortage. African countries, in particular, are digging up sand aggressively. The demand is growing so fast that it could lead to a disaster. Let's explore how we got here and what the future holds for Africa if this continues. First, why is there a sand shortage when the world has so much of it? Why aren't we just using all that sand in the deserts? It turns out that the sand in deserts like the Sahara and Gobi is not useful for human needs. The grains are smooth, tiny, and rounded, shaped by the wind that constantly sweeps across these vast stretches. And desert sand is often full of impurities, minerals, sulfides, and chlorides that make it unsuitable for construction. The sand we need is not in the desert. What humans require is angular sand, the kind that can bind together to form solid materials. This sand is found in riverbeds, floodplains, lakes, and along coastlines, places where water and nature have shaped it to be perfect for construction. But there's much less of it in these areas compared to deserts. Every year, around 53 million tons of sand are extracted from rivers, lakes, and beaches. That's about 44 pounds of sand per person every single day. And no one's stopping because the demand is enormous. Concrete is the main reason for the sand extraction. It takes 200 tons of sand to build a typical concrete house, and for larger projects, the amount skyrockets. The Burj Khalifa in Dubai, for example, used 12,254 tons of concrete, and modern buildings also need massive amounts of glass. The Burj Khalifa required 188 million square feet of glass. But not just buildings. Almost every modern technology relies on sand. Smartphones, cars, even computer chips all require sand, specifically quartz sand. Since the early 2000s, China alone has used more sand every 3 years than the United States did in the entire 20th century. With megaprojects popping up everywhere, it's no surprise that China is a major consumer. In 2022, Leiden University's study projected that in the next 4 decades, the demand for sand will increase by 45%. To meet this need, humanity will have to extract an additional 20 billion tons of sand. Nature is already struggling to replenish sand in rivers and lakes, and the situation is expected to worsen. Now, let's focus on Africa, a continent where the sand shortage seems to be ignored, even as countries mine sand at an alarming rate. Take Kenya, for example. With a population of 53.4 million in 2023, Kenya needs a lot of sand for construction, and the demand will only grow as the population doubles in the next 40 years. Kenya's Vision 2030 plan aims to raise living standards and income, which naturally requires significant infrastructure development. This means more sand for concrete, glass, and more. Kenya relies heavily on river sand, but this practice is causing major environmental problems. In eastern Makueni County, sand mining has reduced the availability of water from local rivers. During the dry season, the sand in riverbed stores water, which locals rely on for drinking and agriculture. But excessive sand mining is disrupting this natural process, leaving the rivers dry and worsening water scarcity. This practice isn't just bad for water supply, it's also damaging ecosystems. Sand mining in the area has led to the destruction of vital habitats for birds and animals, and the land is becoming less fertile over time. Kenya isn't known for having much fertile land, so the loss of natural resources is a big concern. Additionally, illegal sand mining is rampant in the country, with criminal cartels exploiting the situation. A study showed that up to 500 dump trucks filled with illegally mined sand leave Makueni County daily. But there's hope. In Makueni, authorities have established a central body to regulate sand mining. This has reduced illegal mining, but the problem persists in other regions. Without better regulation, Kenya and other African countries could face a serious ecological and water crisis. Moving on to West Africa, we find Sierra Leone, where the coastal sand is being mined at an unsustainable rate. Sierra Leone's beaches, with their dense mangrove forests, are crucial breeding grounds for fish and other marine life. However, as sand mining intensifies, these natural barriers are disappearing. The price of sand in Sierra Leone has surged from $25 per ton in 2012 to $200 in 2021 due to increased demand from the construction and glass industries. Sand mining provides jobs for many, but it's also causing severe problems. Coastal sand helps protect communities from erosion and extreme weather. Without it, coastal areas are more vulnerable to storms and flooding. In 2022, a flood in Bure, a fishing village, washed away a cemetery, and the coastline is eroding rapidly due to sand mining. Mangrove forests are being destroyed, which is harming fish, birds, and turtles. The loss of biodiversity is devastating for local communities that rely on fishing for their livelihoods. Sierra Leone's tourism industry, once buoyed by its beautiful beaches, is also suffering. In 2019, tourism generated $83 million, a significant amount for a country with a GDP of just $7 billion. But as the beaches disappear, tourists are fewer, and the local economy is struggling. People who lost their jobs in tourism are turning to sand mining, which only makes the problem worse. Next, let's talk about Uganda. While Uganda is known for its lush landscapes, it's also facing its own sand mining crisis. In the Luwera region, sand is being extracted from quarries, wetlands, and river systems that flow into Lake Victoria. This area is crucial for fish breeding and provides vital resources for local communities. But the intense sand mining is damaging the ecosystem, especially since the sand extracted from this region is high quality, containing 99.95% silicon, ideal for glass production. The Ugandan government has allowed sand mining in the region, but locals report that miners are ignoring restrictions, digging deeper than allowed. This is causing environmental damage and flooding nearby homes and farms. The government justifies the mining by saying that Uganda needs the sand to support its growing infrastructure needs. Between 2017 and 2020, the government allocated billions of dollars to construction projects, and in the early 2020s, Uganda announced a $5.3 billion investment in urbanization and housing. However, these projects are also draining natural resources. In Uganda, sand mining is a double-edged sword. While it provides much-needed materials for development, it's also damaging ecosystems and contributing to the global sand shortage. The situation is further complicated by the involvement of Chinese companies, which raises concerns among locals who feel they are being exploited. High poverty levels also mean that teenagers are often forced to mine sand to pay for school supplies, further exacerbating the problem. So, what can be done? Scientists are exploring alternatives to sand. For example, graphene, developed at Manchester and Rice University, has been used to improve concrete strength. But it's much more expensive than sand, making it an impractical solution for most countries. Recycled glass has also been proposed as a replacement for sand and concrete, but there isn't enough glass waste to replace sand completely, especially in Africa. For now, regular sand remains irreplaceable. If the current rate of sand extraction continues, the world could face a severe shortage, especially in Africa, where sand mining is already causing significant environmental and social problems. If things don't change, the only sand left in Africa might be in the Sahara Desert.